imagine this. Frank, sharp guy, just lost his job, but he's got almost $900,000 in his 401k, ready to roll it over.
That's a decent nest egg.
Right. And his career and investment coach, Chester, this is someone he'd known, trusted for like a decade.
Okay.
Chester tells him, put it all into an annuity. Says it'll be like his own private pension. So Frank and his wife, Lou, they think, great, we're sorted.
Sounds simple enough on the surface.
Exactly. Then boom, a letter arrives from the annuity company. They're flat out refusing half of Frank's money.
Half? Wow. Why?
Get this, the letter claims Frank has zero income and only $4,000 a month in expenses. But he was making $140,000 before the layoff, and their real bills were $8,000 a month.
That makes no sense. Huge discrepancy.
But wait, there's more. The application Chester filled out, it showed Frank had another $1 million in non-qualified mutual funds. Investments outside the 401k.
Which Frank didn't have.
Had no idea about. But he kept thinking, Chester's got the spreadsheet, he knows his stuff, he works for fee and only for the client. So, okay, let's unpack this. Mm-hmm. How does a simple financial move spiral into, well, this kind of disaster?
It's a perfect storm, really.
So this deep dive, it's all about trying to make sense of this really complex, often confusing world of financial advice. Our mission for you today is to pull out the key lessons from stories like Frank's and from expert analysis so you can make smarter choices about who you trust and how you handle your own money. Mm-hmm. We're going to look at the different players, the sometimes surprising effects of regulations, and even the tools that actually help.
And Frank's story, as extreme as it sounds, it really touches on so many of these critical points. It's fascinating how you see individual trust, these broad regulations, everything just colliding.
Yeah.
It really begs the question, doesn't it? How do you protect yourself in a system that's supposed to protect you, but, well, sometimes doesn't quite get there?
Let's dive deeper into Frank and Lou's situation then. So they're looking at this letter. It's not just the rejected money. It's the numbers being completely wrong. Zero income, 4,000 expenses.
When reality was 140K income and 8,000 expenses.
Exactly. And then the kicker, this $1 million in funds he knew nothing about, on an application Chester had him sign.
And he still trusted him because of the spreadsheet and the history.
Yeah, and Chester kept saying, I work for fee, only for the client. That phrase really stuck with Frank.
You see, Frank's story isn't just about one, let's say, bad apple like Chester. It really highlights how these bigger system issues, regulations, conflicts of interest can hit individuals hard.
How so with the regulations here?
Well, the reality is annuity carriers, they're kind of forced by the government, or at least feel heavily pressured by the regulatory environment to limit how much goes into their products. They get nervous.
Nervous about what?
About regulators or lawsuits saying they allowed someone to put too much money into one type of product, even if the client wants it. So they often only accept about half of someone's investable assets into insurance products, to push diversification.
Ah, okay. So Chester knew this.
Oh, he likely knew. He seems to have lied on Frank's application, inflating Frank's other assets with that phantom millions, specifically to get more of the 401k money into the annuity, maximize his sale, and give Frank that personally owned pension he wanted.
And the consequences for Frank?
Just devastating. The money that got sent back to his old 401k, it had to be sold right during a market correction, a downturn. Frank lost 18%.
Oh, brutal timing.
Terrible. And here's the really strange part. Frank actually wrote a letter taking responsibility for the lie on the application, basically protecting Chester.
Wow. Why would he do that?
Loyalty, maybe embarrassment, wanting it to go away. Hard to say. But last we heard, Chester still has his insurance license.
That just, wow. It really makes you question who you can trust, doesn't it? The author of our source material actually had this experience back in 95.
Yeah.
Saw a cartoon in Newsweek. Showed a stockbroker and a CPA literally picking a consumer's pocket. And the article was all about rampant dishonesty in finance.
Mm-hmm. Setting a tone.
Right. And he worried this kind of cynical sensationalism would just scare people away from getting advice they actually needed, pushing them towards, less than great DIY options.
And that concern was valid. It's really striking how these perceptions, whether they come from generalized distrust or, huge scandals like Bernie Madoff, how they really damage public confidence.
Yeah, looms large.
It does. And it makes people afraid to make financial decisions they probably should be making. We actually have data on this. Cerulli and Associates, they're a big name in financial industry research.
Relevant.
They found that people's willingness to even talk to a financial professional is now about 1/3 what it was back in 1987.
1/3. That's a massive drop.
It's huge. And look, dishonest people exist everywhere, and the source book even details some financial horror stories. But the really big financial scams, because the stakes are just huge, they make headlines. And that creates this impression that finance is maybe more dishonest than other fields.
So it feels like we're walking this tightrope, you know? Mm-hmm. We absolutely need regulation. We need rules to stop the Chesters of the world. Without them, we wouldn't have basic disclosures or licensing standards.
Absolutely essential, no question.
But then you hear stories suggesting those same regulations can backfire, creating new problems for honest advisors and maybe even limiting options for us, the consumers. How does that work?
It's a real double-edged sword. Take errors in omissions insurance, E&O. Advisors need it to give advice or sell products.
Right, liability insurance.
Exactly. But to get it, they typically have to agree not to defend themselves publicly if a client complains. The insurance company decides whether to settle, not the advisor.
So the advisor has no say.
Often very little. This whole environment, it pushes good, experienced advisors to retire early, or they reduce the services they offer, or become really restrictive about who they'll even take on as a client. It's designed to protect, but it adds enormous pressure.
That seems counterproductive.
It can be. There's this anecdote. A seniors luncheon in Charlotte, North Carolina. A compliance auditor from the state's insurance department just gets up and starts basically bad-mouthing annuities as a whole category, implying their bad value.
Oh boy, at a seniors event.
Right before a presentation on a new type of annuity, one that actually combined with long-term care benefits, two couples immediately decided against annuities right then and there.
Based on one comment from a regulator.
Yep. This regulator basically influenced people he had never met to abandon a whole category of products that they likely needed. Just like that.
So the systems designed to protect us can inadvertently fence us in, or even scare us off things that might actually help us. Navigating this means really understanding who you can actually trust.
Precisely. And that brings us right to a really fundamental idea, the fiduciary standard.
Okay, fiduciary. We hear that term a lot. What does it actually mean?
Simply put, a fiduciary is someone, a person or a firm who has a legal or contractual duty to act in the best interest of another. Your interests have to come before their own.
Okay, that sounds good.
It's a concept with deep roots, actually, going way back. It establishes that basis for trust. Now, traditionally, how they got paid, whether it was fees or commissions, as long as they were reasonable, wasn't technically part of that duty. The idea was market forces set prices, and the government generally doesn't set prices unless it's, a monopoly or a national emergency.
Right. But didn't that change recently? There was that Department of Labor rule in 2016 trying to make everyone giving retirement advice a fiduciary.
Yes, that was a major effort. The goal was to apply that fiduciary standard broadly to anyone advising on 401ks, IRAs, things like that. Then a 2017 order kicked off a review of its impact.
And did it work as intended?
Well, here's where it gets really interesting and controversial. Some argue those rules actually created more confusion. They worried it might force advisors, in some situations, to recommend a competitor's product even if their own was suitable.
Really? How?
It gets complicated with varying interpretations, but the fear among some honest professionals was real. It added uncertainty, maybe even contributed to some deciding to retire early rather than navigate the new complexities.
So even trying to enforce acting in the best interest isn't straightforward.
It's incredibly complex. And this leads to another common assumption people make, that fee only equals unbiased.
Yeah, I think a lot of people assume that. If they're not getting a commission, they must be objective.
Well, here's a bit of a newsflash. Fee-only advisors can have their own biases, too. It's just different.
How so?
Often their fees are based on the amount of assets they manage for you. Assets under management, or AUM. So there's an inherent incentive to keep your assets under their management.
I see. So the best thing for me is something outside their management.
Exactly. What if the absolute best move for you is to take a chunk of cash and buy, say, a single premium life insurance policy or a long-term care policy or maybe a fixed annuity? Those are lump sum products. They reduce the assets the advisor is managing and therefore reduce their fee.
So they might be less inclined to recommend those, even if it's the right call for me.
Potentially. It doesn't mean they will be biased, but the potential conflict exists. The bottom line is you have to trust the human being you're working with, not just rely on how they get paid.
So how do you check that?
Ask them. Ask to see examples of financial plans, obviously, with client names removed, where they recommended specific products like annuities or insurance, and ask for the reasoning behind it. Or ask if their firm is set up to handle both fee-based advice and product sales, showing they aren't inherently limited to one side.
Okay, that makes sense. So trust the person, verify their approach. Now, you mentioned different players earlier. Can we break down who's who in this financial zoo?
Absolutely. Let's run through the main types you might encounter. First, investment advisor representatives, or IRRs. They're regulated federally by the SEC and also at the state level. Their main job is advising on managing securities, maybe picking money managers for you, making investment decisions directly, or setting your overall asset allocation.
So investments.
Right. But here's a key thing. Getting an IRR registration covers regulations and basic portfolio ideas. It doesn't automatically mean they're trained in full-blown comprehensive financial planning across all areas of your life.
Okay, good distinction. What about stockbrokers?
Traditionally, their focus is more on selecting specific stocks or bonds and general asset allocation, maybe less on active day-to-day management or really drilling down into specific asset class strategies, although many also hold IRR licenses now, too. They facilitate the buying and selling.
Got it. Then insurance agents.
This is an old and honorable profession, as the source calls them, often highly trusted in communities. Technically, their fiduciary duty is to the insurance carrier, the company.
Not directly to the client.
Traditionally, yes, but the industry has evolved. Good agents now focus heavily on consumer value and making sure the sale is appropriate. Many represent multiple companies to offer better choices, and they have different licenses. Life insurance, which usually covers fixed annuities too, disability, Medicare supplements, long-term care, and then property and casualty for home, auto, business liability. They protect against risks.
Okay. You mentioned FMOs earlier.
Yeah.
Field marketing organization.
Right. This is kind of an industry secret. FMOs are basically intermediaries or wholesalers that support independent insurance agents. But generally, they don't provide deep technical training themselves. The agents bring their own expertise.
So what do FMOs do?
They focus on providing access to competitive products from various insurance carriers. But importantly, the planning software they often provide to their agents might lack sophisticated tools like Monte Carlo simulation. We'll definitely talk more about that later. For an agent to get you the best product value, they really need to be affiliated with a large FMO, one with maybe 5,000 agents or more, just to ensure they have access to the top tier, most competitive carriers and products.
Interesting. Okay, who's next? CPAs.
Certified public accountants. Absolute wizards when it comes to accounting and taxes. They devise strategies that can definitely save you money on taxes, often way beyond what you could do yourself.
They're great for tax planning.
Absolutely. But don't automatically assume your CPA is your go-to for comprehensive financial planning, especially investment or retirement planning. Their expertise is deep but narrow. And definitely ask if their planning software uses Monte Carlo simulation. You really don't want the tax strategy dictating your entire financial future, the old tax tail wagging the financial planning dog.
Good advice. What about bankers or lending officers?
Tread carefully here. There's a story about a guy named Lawrence. He put his investments with his bank's brokerage arm because they gave him a good rate on a commercial property loan.
Seemed convenient, maybe.
Until the 2008 market crash. The bank then called his loan, demanded immediate repayment. He was forced to choose between paying it off somehow or selling his investments right when they were down in value. Disaster.
Ouch.
The point is, mixing your borrowing and investing at the same institution can create this power dynamic. Even if nothing goes wrong, you might feel pressured or influenced because they hold that debt over you. It can lead to sleepless nights.
Makes sense. How about estate planning attorneys?
Absolutely crucial, especially if you have a larger or more complex estate. They handle the vital documents, trusts, wills, making sure your beneficiary designations are correct. They are specialists in the legal side of passing assets on. They should definitely be on your team, but probably not coordinating the whole team.
Specialist role. Got it. And business brokers or M&A folks?
All right, for selling a business,
Yeah.
You've got certified business intermediaries, CBIs, typically for smaller businesses, say up to $5 million, and master intermediaries, M&AMIs, for larger ones.
Do they get involved in personal financial planning?
Sometimes, but it highlights another potential gap. There's a story about Sally. Her broker R team put together a plan for her business expansion, but they completely missed the fact that she desperately needed a marketing consultant before pouring money into expansion.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, she spent $70,000, which was only about half of what was needed for the marketing to even have a chance of succeeding. Wasted cash, more debt. It shows that, stock brokerage reps, they almost never do their own detailed financial plans for clients, let alone have deep training in business management or marketing strategy.
Okay, so that's a lot of different professionals, each with their own focus and potential blind spots. With all these types, how do you figure out who has the right broad training, the expertise you need to pull it all together?
That is the critical question. And the answer often lies in looking for specific, rigorous credentials. There are a couple that really stand out as the gold standard for general comprehensive financial planning.
Okay, what are they?
The Certified Financial Planner, or CFP, mark, and the Chartered Financial Consultant, or CHFC, designation.
CFP and CHFC.
Right. People with these credentials have gone through really tough, broad education covering all the key areas of financial planning, investments, insurance, retirement, taxes, estate planning, the whole lot. They also have significant ongoing education requirements and strict ethical standards.
So they see the big picture.
Exactly. They are trained specifically to integrate all the technical stuff with your personal subjective goals. And crucially, they're trained to manage the team, to coordinate with the specialists like CPAs and attorneys, and integrate all 6 areas of financial planning. Plus, the CFP requires at least 3 years of actual experience before you can even use the mark.
That sounds comprehensive. Are there other important credentials for specialists?
Definitely. For insurance expertise, look for the Chartered Life Underwriter, CLU. For deep dives into retirement income planning, there's the Retirement Income Certified Professional, RICP. They often get into more specific tax strategies related to retirement than most CPAs do.
Okay.
For high-level securities trading and evaluation, especially for very wealthy clients, you have the Chartered Financial Analyst, CFA. For commercial real estate, the Certified Commercial Investment Member, CCIM, is highly respected. And we already mentioned the CBI and MNAMI for business sales.
So lots of legitimate specializations. How do you tell the good ones from, just fancy letters on a wall?
Good question. Generally, trust designations from established, reputable organizations like the American College of Financial Services, the Financial Planning Association, the CFP Board of Standards, or strong university programs. Be wary of things that look like bogus wall certificates from less-known entities.
Makes sense. Stick to the known quantities.
Right. And always remember, you, the client, you run your own team. But you'd likely do very well to let a qualified financial planner, a CFP or CHFC, after doing a thorough analysis, help you set the agenda and coordinate those specialists.
Okay, so we've talked about the who, the professionals, the credentials, but what about the how? The tools they use. You hinted earlier that the way planning used to be done had some serious flaws.
Oh, absolutely. It's maybe a bit of an embarrassing industry secret, but for a long time, a lot of financial planning software and even simple spreadsheets people used relied on what are called assumed rates of return.
Assumed rates of return? What's wrong with that?
The problem is they were always a known number. Like assuming your investments would return exactly 8% every single year forever. And guess what? That assumed number was always better than reality.
Because markets don't move in straight lines.
Exactly. And critically, these old methods assumed no market losses. None. Which is completely unrealistic. And we know that early losses are the worst because they drastically reduce the capital you have available to grow over the long term.
So if your plan was based on these smooth upward-only lines,
your plan was likely overly optimistic, potentially dangerously so. So here's a clear warning. If your CPA, insurance agent, stockbroker, IR, whoever, if their software primarily uses a simple, fixed, assumed rate of return, do not rely on that for making detailed, critical financial decisions. It's just not robust enough.
Wow, okay. That raises a huge question then. If that old way was so flawed, what is the reliable way? What's the gold standard now?
The gold standard, without a doubt, is software that uses Monte Carlo simulation.
Monte Carlo simulation. Sounds fancy. Like the casino.
Sort of, but it's about probability, not gambling. It's considered essential to proper asset allocation decisions today. It doesn't predict the future. Nobody can do that.
Right.
But what it does do is predict the likelihood, the probability that you'll reach a certain age, say 95, without running out of money.
How does it do that?
It mathematically simulates thousands, sometimes tens of thousands, of possible future economic scenarios. It uses decades of real historical data, the ups, the downs, the volatility for different types of investments, year by year, and applies those random changes to your portfolio over and over again.
So it runs your plan through countless possible futures.
Exactly. Thousands of what-ifs. So instead of one overly optimistic line, you get a probability. Think about it. If the simulation showed your current plan only had, say, a 45% chance of leaving you with any money left by age 95, wouldn't you want to know that?
Absolutely. That's crucial information.
Wouldn't that make you rethink things? Maybe save more, spend less, adjust your investments. It helps you make decisions to improve your odds, maybe get that probability up to 85% or 90%.
Okay, that sounds incredibly powerful. What software actually does this?
The leading packages that financial planners use include names like Navy Plan, Money Guide Pro, eMoney, Morningstar Advisor Workstation, and Navi Pro Planning Suite. These are sophisticated tools.
And you mentioned earlier maybe FMOs or CPAs don't always use these?
Unfortunately, yes. Many FMOs providing tools to insurance agents, and sometimes CPAs focused purely on taxes, might still be using simpler software that relies more on those older, less reliable assumed return methods. It's definitely something to ask about.
So with these sophisticated tools like Monte Carlo, you might be thinking, okay, maybe I don't need a human advisor. Can I just use a robo-planner online or grab some software and do it myself?
That's a really common question today, and it's understandable. Robo-planning tools have gotten better. They often start with more interactive questions than basic DIY software. And yes, some robo-services do incorporate Monte Carlo simulation.
So they're getting closer.
They are improving. However, and this is a big however, I would still strongly caution against relying solely on software without a human advisor. Why? Because frankly, there is no substitute for human counseling yet.
Why not? What can humans do that algorithms can't?
Oh, so many things. Software can't really adapt your long-term strategies for potential changes in tax laws decades down the road. It can't anticipate or help you navigate truly unforeseen life events, a long-term layoff, a forced career change due to disability.
Yeah, life throws curveballs.
Exactly. Software can't understand complex, subjective desires. Like, maybe you want to structure your estate plan to influence your children's choices even after you're gone. That's deep human stuff, not code.
Right.
It struggles with integrating complex business and personal finances, like figuring out the optimal amount of money to pull from your company each year. It can't really advise on the wisdom of turning a hobby into a business or help you prioritize between different budget goals or decide if mortgaging an asset makes sense.
These are judgment calls.
Oh, judgment calls, absolutely. Software won't prompt you about investment in oneself, learning new skills, which is often your best investment. It can't help you choose between different types of life insurance, term versus permanent, or different structures of long-term care policies, like ongoing premiums versus single pay, or shared benefits versus individual. These choices involve personal preferences, risk tolerance, health factors, things that can't just be mathematically optimized.
That's not just numbers.
Not at all. And it can't account for the impossibility of total customization or understand how you and your spouse might view money differently and need to find common ground. Software gives you optimal recommendations based on its inputs, but those recommendations can be vague or sometimes just plain wrong because they lack real-world experiential judgment.
Can you give an example?
Sure. Imagine someone models paying for long-term care insurance with ongoing premiums. The software shows it works, but it doesn't account for the fact that those premiums might increase significantly in the future. Then add a market correction that hits their investments, and the LTC insurance rates go up. Suddenly, the plan completely falls apart. A human advisor might have flagged that premium risk up front.
Because they've seen it happen before.
Exactly. The software is just a tool, a powerful one, but still just a tool. It can show cash flows, run probabilities, but it's not a final answer.
So if it's not just the software, what is the big secret to effective financial planning? What's the best methodology?
It does work.
It really comes down to prudent stewardship of money. It's not about having a crystal ball. It's about an iterative process, a back and forth that combines a competent planner, someone with expertise and judgment, using that expert understanding of likely best solutions with the power of sophisticated software like Monte Carlo.
Okay, so how does that process actually look? It typically goes something like this. First, initial input. The planner, or even a careful DIYer, inputs all your comprehensive financial data into the modeling software. Garbage in, garbage out, so this step is crucial.
Get the facts right.
Second, current scenario analysis. You run the simulation based on your current path. Does it look like you'll meet your goals? Or are you projected to run out of money? This is just the baseline, the starting point.
See where you are now.
Third, iterative optimization. This is where the planner's expertise really shines. They don't just accept the first result. They perform maybe 5 to 10 reworkings, testing different combinations of strategies, maybe adjusting savings, changing asset allocation, considering different retirement ages, exploring insurance options, using Monte Carlo each time to see how it impacts the probability of success. They add new constraints that make sense, reflecting your priorities, and eliminate strategies that clearly aren't working well.
So they're actively tweaking and testing.
Constantly refining. Then fourth, client collaboration. If even after all that tweaking, the goals aren't quite reachable with a high probability, the planner and the client put their heads together. They recheck priorities, maybe decide to spend less on certain goals, go on the cheap for some strategies, or find other compromises. It becomes a collaborative effort.
A partnership.
Exactly. And this whole iterative process, this need for refinement and judgment, it's precisely why even discount brokerages that started with pure robo-planners have now added human consultants. They realized most people just don't have the experience to navigate those iterations and identify the truly optimal solutions on their own.
We've covered so much ground today. From Frank's really tough story, that cautionary tale, through the maze of regulations and fiduciary duties, to the power of tools like Monte Carlo simulation. It seems crystal clear that managing your financial life effectively takes both sophisticated analysis and that critical human insight.
That's the core message, really. Ultimately, financial planning, it's not just about piling up the most money possible. It's about thoughtful, prudent stewardship of the resources you have. It's about making sure your responsibilities are covered, your risks are managed, and then ensuring that whatever is left over aligns with your values and your life's purposes.
So it's about stewardship, not just accumulation.
Precisely. Remember the saying, whoever dies with the most toys is not the winner. In this context, perhaps, whoever dies with the most prudently stewarded resources is a winner, because they met their obligations and used their wealth purposefully.
That's a powerful way to frame it.
Yeah.
So as people think about finding that trustworthy advisor, that human element, what final thoughts should they keep in mind?
Maybe 2 slightly ego-whacking but useful truths. First, remember what Will Rogers said. Everybody is ignorant only on different subjects. We all have blind spots.
Good point. Humility helps.
And second, consider this. If you interviewed a potential financial planner and you looked at their resume, their background, their skills, and it looked pretty much the same as your own resume, would you actually hire them?
Probably not for specialized financial advice.
Right. You're looking for someone who brings different knowledge, different experience, different skills to the table.
So take these insights, think about your own situation, and remember, for that comprehensive planning, for coordinating all the pieces, consider consulting a certified financial planner, a CFP, or a chartered financial consultant, a CHFC. They can help you build and manage your financial team.